Nasty COVID variant, XBB.1.5. According to recent statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than half of COVID-19 cases in the United States are caused by a novel coronavirus type. XBB.1.5, a subvariant of Omicron, is rapidly increasing in prevalence and is expected to become the most common strain in the country soon. When did this variant first appear, and what is it about XBB.1.5 that has piqued the interest of virologists? Early in September last year, XBB.1.5 was discovered in India. By the following week, it had been found in 6 other nations, suggesting its presence had begun a few weeks earlier. There are nearly as many differences, 6, between XBB.1.5 and the current Omicron vaccine strain and the original vaccination strain, Omicron, in the portion of the spike where the immune system can stop infection. There are a lot of subtle distinctions between XBB.1.5 and previously studied viruses, which is what makes it a vaccine breaker. Does XBB.1.5 look like it could spread like wildfire this winter like Omicron did? Fisher. To answer your question, another infectious disease outbreak is possible. Infections and hospitalizations have increased in several areas where XBB.1.5 is already prevalent in the United States. There is no reason to suppose that it won't spread all throughout the country, leading to a new uptick in new infections, illnesses, hospitalizations, and fatalities. This variant's increased infectiousness is particularly worrisome. The SARS-CoV-2 variant in its latest version is able to more efficiently infect and reproduce within human cells because it can penetrate them with greater ease. Concerns about this new variation have been amplified because Omicron is already rather adept at it. Although more research is required, it stands to reason that the transmission of the virus to others may occur before the onset of symptoms, or that even a small number of virus particles may be sufficient to seed an infection. After surviving the Thanksgiving holiday relatively unscathed, specialists are worried about a new spike in cases due to the heightened transmission efficiency of this type at the end of a winter break. Nevertheless, similar to past waves, scientists can't say with certainty what a new one would look like, including the number of new illnesses, the rate at which the virus would travel through populations, or the speed with which we might stop its spread and bring an end to the wave. Is there any information on how frequently this variant causes hospitalizations and fatalities and how it stacks up against other variants? XBB.1.5's unique ability lies in its ability to infect humans who have enough antibodies to block other strains and in its ability to thrive in environments where other strains would perish. The good news is that people infected with XBB.1.5 do not appear to experience any more severe COVID symptoms than those presently being experienced. While the good news is that this variety is not bringing more severe sickness, it nevertheless causes serious illness and, in rare cases, death. The elderly and people with particular underlying health issues, for example, are groups we often connect with these more terrible consequences. Yet, these generalizations are not flawless in forecasting who will suffer the most. That's why stopping the spread of the virus is so crucial. How well do the XBB.1.5 vaccine and the bivalent booster protect against the virus? Can a previous case of COVID lead to reinfection? There is a need to renew the vaccination. However, a recent booster appears to provide adequate protection against the XBB.1.5 infection for a few months. The ability of regulatory agencies like the FDA to respond quickly to this next stage in the evolution of viruses depends on their own agility. When it comes to preventing reinfection, a history of infection is no better than a booster, and it's considerably less effective when the original infection was caused by a different strain. The bivalent booster, which was developed to combat Omicron variations, has already shown its efficacy against the most recent strain. Recent research reveals that compared to the initial vaccine formulation, the booster can provide up to 4 to 5 times as much protection against XBB.1.5 in the highest risk age range. As vaccination efficacy declines with time following subsequent shots, receiving the full complement of recommended vaccine doses, including boosters, is necessary for optimal protection. Everyone who received their first dose of a vaccine series before the year 2022 is not yet safe to assume immunity. Immunity from infection, whether symptomatic or not, also waned and does not necessarily protect against new variations. Thus, a history of infection is not a reason to skip immunization. Even if your initial infection was moderate, you still run the risk of reinfection and a more serious illness. The risk of chronic disease and disability increases with each subsequent COVID infection. What can we infer about the virus's evolutionary trajectory from this latest variant? While it's impossible to anticipate how quickly a species will evolve, today's widespread immunity means that only viruses that are significantly different from the vaccine stand a chance of spreading. And that's something to be happy about. Increased vaccination rates will help us put the virus in its place by stifling its ability to adapt. Because public masking and other preventative measures have fallen out of favor, what recommendations do you have for those who suffer from pandemic fatigue? There is genuine exhaustion, burnout, and ennui associated with this illness and the epidemic. Nonetheless, the biggest influence we have over this infection is in our own hands. We can monitor the effects of the virus on our neighborhoods, households, and networks of friends and acquaintances. When the rate of transmission is modest, we can relax a bit. When we see a new PTICK in viral activity or hear reports of a potentially dangerous new strain appearing in the media, we can take action to halt the virus in its tracks, reduce its spread, ensure our own and others' safety, and slow the formation of the next strain. Although these infections are happening in the community, many individuals still want to know what precautions they can take to ensure their own safety when they get together with friends and family. If everyone in the group follows the best practices I suggest, we can keep these gatherings as free of COVID as possible. Stay away from anything that could cause an infection for 3 to 5 days prior to the event. Keep an eye out for cold, flu, or allergy symptoms for the previous 48 hours. If any appear, stay away from the event and maybe even get tested and isolated from others until the symptoms subside, and take a rapid home test within the preceding 2 hours. Testing as close to the start time as possible will give the most timely information about your infection status. While it's impossible to completely prevent the spread of illness, adhering to these guidelines can greatly reduce the likelihood that anyone in your group will catch a cold, the flu, or anything else that's going around.